Hello, welcome to episode 388 of the Sunday New York Times Read Along. My name is Neil Parekh. Sreenivasan is here as well, and we are looking forward to a great show today. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentor's website. Please like, comment, share, do all the things you do to make sure that people can find this show. For everyone watching on replay, thank you for joining us at a time that is more convenient. 8:30 in the morning Eastern time doesn't work for everybody, but there's always such good content and good conversation. It's worth joining. We will be covering several issues. The Supreme Court's decision. Oh, who saw that coming? I mean, I thought that I was surprised when they actually pushed back on President Trump. He called them lapdogs, I think, and that's what I've thought most of them were for the last year. But we'll also talk about what I've been calling the arrest in Great Britain. I really wanted to avoid saying his name or the name of the person who this is all about, but we know it's the Epstein Files. We know it's former Prince Andrew. That was pretty shocking, especially the contrast between the U.S. and Great Britain in that regard. We will also talk about the Olympics. We have exclusive PDFs from the New York Times on our website of the Olympics, of Olympics coverage. We have their Friday, Saturday, and Sunday coverage. Yes, today's coverage, they sent it to us yesterday, and we were able to send it out by email. You can download it from our website, and we certainly hope you take advantage of that. And then later in the show, we will have a special moment, a tribute to Reverend Jesse Jackson. And we're hoping that our friend Walter Greason will be able to join us for that. But for now, let's bring on our host, Sreenivasan. Good morning, Sree. How are you?
Good morning. So great to be here with you. It's a big news day with all that's happening in the world. But in New York, what we're worried about is what's been called a bomb cyclone that's coming, a snowstorm that's much bigger than the big snowstorm you may have heard about just a couple of weeks ago. They're saying this will be one of the top 5 snowstorms since the 1800s. So this is super scary. They're calling it a shutdown event, a lockdown event. And there's just so much going on with that. So a lot of people here in New York are distracted, but I see a lot of our New York friends are here. John is here. John, great to see you. Thank you for being here from the East Village. Rahadyan is here from Bayshore, Long Island. Hello, stay warm. Doug is lucky to be in California, but he's up at 5:30 in the morning, Doug. Thank you for being here. Diane is in Margate, New Jersey. Ken is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We're so grateful to everyone who's watching. Tell us how your Sunday is going, where you are in the world. Neil and I do this every Sunday, 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on all these different platforms. And we want to do this because we love talking about the news. We want to fight misinformation, disinformation, and we're able to do this with the support of our wonderful sponsors. So we want to do a big shout out to Walter Greason and the Graphic History Company. We're very grateful to them for their support, and you'll meet Walter in just a few minutes. We're also grateful to Muckrack. Muckrack is the platform that every communications professional already knows, and journalists, you can get a free profile, verified profile, that we will put you in the world's largest directory of verified journalists. So you definitely want to check that out. And I see that our friend Mary C. Curtis is here with us. Hi, Mary, from Charlotte, North Carolina. Worried about my history professor's son in New York City. Please say hello and please make sure that he is staying indoors. Kaveri is here. Kaveri is watching. She's from Ireland. She's been a guest on the show. Her book, The Inheritance, is doing really well, and she's going to be in New York in a few weeks. I'm excited about that. And Sudha is watching from Tampa, Florida. This is where we bring in Neil to say hello to his mom so that he can, this can count as a weekly call minimum. Right? Feeling bad for my friends in New York due to huge snowstorm that's coming. Neil.
Minimum or max? I mean, that's. I actually did, Sree. So this is a little joke that we do, and yes, I do talk to my mom more than just once a week. Okay. But I think a few days ago, I didn't talk to her, and I said, "But Mom, I talked to you on Sunday." She didn't.
She will not be accepting that. I know, Mom. So that's great. Thank you, everybody, for being here, including Auntie. Deb is here in Fort Lauderdale, where it's National Margarita Day, and lots of hot topics today, of course. And I was in Fort Lauderdale just a couple of weeks ago, and sitting in the sun, I loved it. I wish I was there. And Kaveri says, "Badmash, Neil." Neil, do you know what that means?
It's like some kind of chiding, some kind of
yes, but I mean, naughty fellow is basically the way I would. Yes, naughty fellow is how I would characterize that, folks. We have a lot to get through today, and we want to talk about everything that's happening. But we do want to, as always, I like to kind of check in on yesterday's headlines, and of course, yesterday was the big headline, the power, Neil, of the 6-column headline in a printed newspaper. We call it 6 columns because it goes across what are traditionally the 6 columns of the paper. Justices reject Trump's tariffs in key blow to his trade policy. And the subheadlines are: President berates court, vowing workaround. And with a 6-3 ruling, independence is declared. Now, before everybody gets too excited, as I did, please note that this could be most likely just a temporary thing. It's Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and John Roberts who sided with the liberal justices. And we certainly have not expected a 6-3 in this direction for a long time. And I didn't expect to see it. So as Neil put it very well, that was a surprise. But doesn't mean that they're going to be voting against Trump on other issues. And also, Trump has already tried to put in more tariffs anyway. So he's going to, as he said in that headline, he's going to try for that workaround on this issue. I was proud to see Neil Katyal, who argued the case in front of the Supreme Court, defeat Trump's lawyers. He was a former Solicitor General of the United States, meaning he was the government's top lawyer arguing in favor of government government cases before. Now is on the other side, and nothing like seeing the son of immigrants challenging and defeating the president of the United States. This is what America is about, and he did that in a way that's so important that the world can see that. That should be what the story is. Doesn't matter whether it's about tariffs or anything else. This is a country where we can speak up, speak out, and hold the powerful to account. This was illegal, what he had done. The question now, Neil, is what happens to the $200+ billion already collected? And I love what JB Pritzker did out of Illinois. He sent a letter to Trump asking for $8 billion of the tariff money that Illinois residents had sent in to to the Treasury.
From what I read, I mean, yes, in theory, legally, companies are owed that money, but the lawsuits and the process of getting that back is going to be really difficult, and then I'm sure that the administration will drag its feet. I do want to say, Sree, before we dive into the paper, we do have our friend Walter Greason here with us, and we wanted to ask him to join us to just say a few words. This week, the other big thing in the news was that the Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away, and he certainly loomed large for a lot of us. I'll just share real quickly. Last year, I had the incredible honor. I didn't get a chance to meet him. This is the closest I came. I took a picture of him and the CEO of the John Lewis Foundation, and then at Selma, at the 60th anniversary of Selma. And then I was taking pictures of the march as well. I went to a convention, a rally, presidential rally that he held in 1988. I was 15. I went with my mom's union friends, and I will never forget that. But Walter Greason, we want to bring you on. Walter, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's earlier for you in Minnesota. Walter is a professor at McAllister College in Minneapolis. There's so much that you've been dealing with, Walter, and we do want to hear about that at another time. But the question that we have for you, Reverend Jesse Jackson, what did he mean to you personally?
Thank you both, Sree and Neil. You all are brilliant, inspiring lights for me. And yes, it has been a very dark time here in Minnesota, but our people are strong and have shown the world a different path forward. Reverend Jackson was the person who showed us how to bring that courage to the forefront at a time when we need it. And so for me, growing up in a community dedicated to civil rights in New Jersey, hearing the Dream speech, and then learning very shortly after about the assassination of Dr. King, I saw the photos of a young Jesse Jackson standing at the motel, the Lorraine Motel, just minutes before Dr. King was killed. And so for me, there's an indelible connection between understanding Dr. King's life and legacy, which inspired me to become a civil rights historian, and following the example of Reverend Jackson, who dedicated his life to King's dream and the idea of beloved community. So here in Minnesota, in the moment when the entire state has manifested the strength to become the beloved community, to defend our neighbors no matter where they're from. Although I will emphasize this is not everybody in Minnesota. We still have large numbers of people opposed to Dr. King's dream, opposed to the life of Reverend Jackson. Such an important moment is when we look at what's going on with this confrontation and the peace between the two, or the two sides of this confrontation, represented by the White House and its supporters. First is this idea that America is only for certain people, only for people from Northern Europe or descended from the British Isles, and that they will use any means, including violence and corruption, to defend their commitment to that idea. Reverend Jackson stood for something else. When he runs for president, especially in 1988, but really the foundations are in 84, he is committed to the idea of a rainbow coalition, where all people have a place in American society. And that stretches back more than 200 years prior to the founding of the American Republic. You can see in the origins of the British colonies and the Spanish colonies these ideas that indigenous people, Black people, people from all different walks of life, can come here and find new freedom. It's the promise of the new world. And so this piece goes really to the heart of who we are. And it's really, for me, I'll say what the New York Times read-along has stood up and represented for as long as it's existed, for now more than a decade that you all do this every Sunday morning. This piece, Jackson represented the way of taking King's moral vision and turning it into action. He wrote and developed the structure of civil rights laws in terms of enforcement through the 70s and 80s. He turned that into economic policy, holding the private sector accountable for what needed to happen and actually to dismantle discrimination. If you were to look at the labor force at the time of King's death, and then compare it to what the labor force looked like in 1988, it is so much more diverse. It has so many more people from so many different places. I thought recently about Jackson. He's born in 1941, and I looked back to his parents' lives, that the world they lived in the 1920s was dominated by the Ku Klux Klan. It was defined by race riots, the Red Summer of 1919, the destruction of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And for this young man to grow up and dedicate his life to a world where in 2004, he sees one of his mentees, Barack Obama, give a speech at the Democratic National Convention, and to fan the flame of inspiration in Obama's heart to run for Senate, to then go on and become a presidential nominee, to be the first African American to win the Democratic National Committee's support, to then successfully win that presidential campaign in 2008 and be inaugurated as president in 2009. It's almost inconceivable. It is almost inconceivable to see the way his life stretches from the worst days of American society to some of our best days. So thank you for letting me be a part of the broadcast this morning. It means everything to me to be in community with you all every Sunday morning. And so I hope we will all take a moment to make the choice to be an inclusive society and continue to live and advance the work of Reverend Jackson, Dr. King, and countless people who have given their lives for justice and freedom in the United States and around the world.
Professor, what a sermon you gave today, not just as a professor, you were preaching to us. Thank you so much. I had not heard the phrase fanning the flames of inspiration before. You only hear fanning flames in a bad context, and you did it in a beautiful, special context. And we know that 2008, that election, and the reaction of white nationalists to that election led from there to the Tea Party in 2010, that led to Donald Trump in 2016, and the Capitol riot and insurrection and attempted coup d'etat in 2021, and to the re-election of Donald Trump, and a targeted dismantling of everything that both Dr. King as well as Reverend Jackson stood for. And your contrast to where we were in 1968, where we happened to be in 2008, and where we could have been. You're right. We never expected a Black man to be elected twice in the United States, a Black man with the middle name Hussein, and a last name that rhymed with Osama. I never would have expected that. We got that. We were lucky. I started a hashtag the day of the Trump inauguration that I I said, we missed the Obamas. I actually started even before they left, I said, we will miss the Obamas, and then we miss the Obamas every day, but they're all in that line, and we're very grateful to you for being here. I do want to show you a photograph that I took in 1999 at the Unity Conference. This is Unity Journalists of Color Conference in 1999 in Seattle. And Dr. Jackson was at the NABJ dance party. The NABJ dance party is always the best party at any convention. There's the National Association of Black Journalists. And he danced with us. And there you see Apurva Mandavilli on the left, the terrific, she would go on to become the reporter about COVID for the New York Times. And then you see Mitra Kalita, dear friend of us and a friend of the show. And you see Kavita Kumar there as well. And Walter, this was before selfies. So that's why I'm not in the picture. But you know I love selfies. And you and I have taken many selfies together. But there wasn't a way in those old cameras to take a selfie. I never thought of doing that. So this is the closest I have to a selfie with Dr. Jackson, with Reverend Jackson. He partied with us. He danced with us. It was so much fun. And we can look back and reflect on the many lives he touched. And I have to tell you, as someone who's 55 years old, he has been in my consciousness of as long as I've been aware of politics, he's been around. And it'll be fair to say, Professor, that it wasn't always positive how he was treated, and some of the action, steps he took along the way could have been questioned. But at the heart of it, he was there to make life for Americans better. And when you look at where we are with Donald Trump and the politics of today, we see a different place. So I'd love your thoughts, and then Neil, I know you want to jump in too.
Absolutely. I just wanted to jump in really to let the folks see some of the comments that I've been putting on the screen, because our audience, Walter, they loved you. The comments that we
Let's
saw.
rerun them, Neil. Let's rerun them from
Yeah,
the top.
exactly. Running the comments, so what we want to show Ken Fisher at the inspirational moment. He summoned the heavens. We have Stefan saying inclusive society is everything, but more. Rahadian, thank you so much, Professor Greason. Ron Thomas saying it was a master class. Poverty, such moving words. Miriam, thank you. Thanks for this wonderful statement, Walter Greason. And list goes on. My mom also shared great tribute to Reverend Jackson by Walter Greason. Thank you very much. We'll say that there are other comments as well that are coming in, which is what happens when you go live on a show. We don't need to put them on the air. We can disagree with all of the hate that's out there, we will block the ones that are crossing a line. I think there's a way to do that. Find that that balance, but there's certainly some that are not appropriate to show. But and that was Chitachi's, I think, that also said, and Dr. Greason is the teacher. That was amazing. So just so incredible. And this is a little bit, Sree, you're showing the Jesse Jackson Sesame Street, but we don't have the audio on that.
Yeah, I didn't play the audio, but
Okay.
there are two videos that have been circulating the most, I think. The first is the Keep Hope Alive speech, and from 1988 at the Democratic Convention, to see a black man standing there at the Democratic National Convention running for president, that was an amazing moment. And then this from Sesame Street, where he had a simple message where he said, I might be poor, and he had these kids shout a call and response. He's saying, I am somebody. That I am, this is, that was a very special thing. So I'd like you to reflect on both those videos, please, Walter. What we want, and we weren't able to play it here, but it's Sree, it was a Sesame Street. Yeah, Sesame Street. Just you type in Sesame Street and Reverend Jackson.
What was the other one?
The other one was the DNC I Keep Hope Alive speech that in
DNC
1988.
speech.
Yeah. By the way, a side political note. As you know, some people say that Bill Clinton was the first black president, and because of the way he communicated, the way he connected with people. And in 1988, he gave the keynote speech, and he was so bad at it and so long, and it was long, and he was so bad that when he said in conclusion, people went crazy. And at that moment, if you said this man is going to be elected president in 4 years, no one would have believed it, or that he was the greatest communicator before Barack Obama in this context. No one would believe that.
Let's go to Walter and ask for his thoughts on the videos. Walter, please.
You're muted, Walter. Hold on one second. Let's.
No worries.
Okay, I think he's still muted. Walter, jump in when you can. We'll keep going here. Ellen says, so sad and wrong to have hate with this. And I
And
love
Walter's
Dr.
back.
Chachi's comment. Okay, I love Dr. Chachi's comment. Thank you, Professor Greason. You're on.
Go, Walter.
So yeah, Jesse Jackson's presence in American culture is one of my favorite topics to talk with folks, especially since we're streaming and we're connected on so many different platforms. That in this moment, Jackson rises as television becomes the heart of American media. And so most people don't realize for the first 20 years of television's existence, most people only had a single television in their homes. It'd be a really large box sitting in their living room and folks would gather around it. Jackson rises as a voice in American society, not only as broadcast television expands and the major three networks start to rise, but also as cable television becomes real. And I think we have to link a lot of the power of his vision and what he's able to accomplish to the way he communicates on these new forms of media as they emerged. And so when you see the Sesame Street video, just really famous, very popular piece of a contribution to American culture, he's intentional about speaking to the youngest people. And over again, this message about I am somebody. Like, that's a really radical message in the United States in the 1970s. The backlash against the civil rights movement is in full flow. And so the effort to make people believe in universal human dignity is not a small deal. Like, see this in the context of coming out of the Holocaust, coming out of World War II, where the explicit opposite, that some people's lives don't matter. In fact, many people's lives don't matter. I would argue even most people's lives don't matter. And Jackson is saying, I am somebody to young people from all over the United States so that they believe in themselves and will stand up for their own dignity. You go further and you see the way he comes to the table. The contrast with Bill Clinton is really sharp and impressive, because I think this is a moment we're in right now, and it's probably the thing I'm most proud of here in Minnesota, is that for white American leaders to listen to immigrant voices, to listen to women's voices, to listen to Black people's voices, that was not acceptable. There was always minimizing the voices of people who were different, who were not white men, white Christian men, older, wealthy white Christian men in American society. And we still see this in the boardrooms and the editorial boards. Like, there are still these struggles about who has the authority and who has the legitimacy to be heard. And Jackson breaks that. He fractures it with his speeches in '84 and '88. By opening the door, he's actually mentoring Bill Clinton through his criticism so that Clinton is able to be a more compelling presenter, speaker by the time you get to 92 and 96. And so this process of how do we hear each other? How do we listen more deeply? This is being negotiated between 1988 and 1994. And you have a real solid commitment from the Republican Party, led by Newt Gingrich, to say, no, we're following tradition. We're not listening to all of these voices from people around the world. And we're particularly not going to listen to Black voices, liberal Black voices like Jesse Jackson. And so that piece of kind of turning who can be heard, not just into a political struggle, but into a cultural revolution, that's the power, that's the legacy of Jackson that makes it possible for us to see not just Barack Obama, but even though he's disgraced, you see John Edwards will use a lot of these same techniques. You'll see governors across the country today use these techniques. And so when I look at somebody like J.B. Pritzker, he's learned this lesson. I look at my governor here in Minnesota, Tim Walz. He has learned this lesson. I think we're going to see at the State of the Union when Jacob Fry responds to President Trump, you're going to see a very different sense of how people listen to each other and how do they then respond and kind of lead the broadest possible coalition. So now we can talk internationally and see this in Europe as well. I've seen recent comments from Macron that show this kind of awareness. But that debate is still the debate we're having today. Who
Thank
do
you
we listen
for
to? How do they convey authority?
No, absolutely. You're so right. And you taught me something. I didn't know that Jacob Fry was the mayor of Minneapolis, who's been besieged in so many different ways, is giving the response, the Democratic response, brilliant on their part. Normally, it's a senator or a congressman. Yeah, Neil.
I think it's Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger
Okay.
giving the response. So I'm sure maybe there are two responses.
Yeah, maybe
there's
there are
something
two.
else.
Yeah. But I want to ask, and before we let Walter go, I want to point out this tweet I did in 2022. I'm talking to a hip hop expert here, so he'll forgive me if I get some of the nuance wrong. But I was listening to Changes by Tupac after many years, and I'm struck by the clever use of Bruce Hornsby's The Way It Is and the line about America not being ready for a black president, first written in 1992 and released posthumously in 1998. Barack Obama was still a ways away when he wrote, and although it seems heaven sent, we ain't ready to see a black president. It ain't a secret. Don't conceal the fact. The penitentiary's packed and it's filled with blacks. Your thoughts?
So, Walter, you see for the tweet about Tupac.
Yeah. If Walter doesn't hear us, that's okay. This is one of the great lines, and it shows us that so many people, including Reverend King, did not expect to see a black president in the United States, let alone one that could be elected twice. And there have been many efforts before, including Shirley Chisholm running for president in 1972. But it was Reverend Jackson's 1984, 1988 efforts that made someone like Barack Obama possible. Walter, thank you so much for being here.
We do want to get his thoughts on
Tupac.
Tupac, though.
From Tupac, this makes a connection that is at the depths of my heart. Like I really wouldn't exist without this question, this topic. Hip hop is one of these signs of the way the cultural landscape changed in response to Jesse Jackson and the way the rhetoric of black ministers moved into popular culture. And so we have lots of debates in hip hop. I'll say partnership with you all through the graphic history of hip hop has been amazing for us the last couple of years. But this going back, people look at the origins of hip hop in terms of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Muhammad Ali, then going into James Brown and the kind of style of music that he produced, as well as things that come out of the funk and kind of R&B traditions through that same period. That piece where you see Tupac talking about the idea of the society not being ready for a black president, and then contrasting it with the prison industrial complex. These are some of the most important questions that I teach about in understanding civil rights history to this day. Just yesterday, I hosted a major conference at Macalester College on social studies education here in Minnesota. And one of the teachers who has just started her career was basically lining up and asking about, when we discuss civil rights, why don't we actually analyze what happens in our prisons? Why do we have these kind of secret areas of our society where no one really knows or cares about what happens to those people? And then she's making the point about teaching the children of people who are incarcerated, and how does she actually hear their voices and bring their knowledge to the table in classroom discussion. And so this piece about Tupac and the role that hip hop has done for us, there's only one real parallel that I see in terms of popular culture and its impact. And I talk a great deal about Law and Order Special Victims Unit. And that show changes our vocabulary about violence and sexual violence, domestic violence in American society. And these voices about who do we hear and how do we hear them, it is our popular culture. It's our media. And this is why you see the debates around Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl or Kendrick Lamar last year. These are all debates about who do we listen to and why are we listening to them. And so that piece of this, yeah, Jackson brings that to the table. Hip hop carries it forward. The voices of women and domestic abuse survivors, clearly the Epstein survivors in this moment, these are the voices we need to listen to shape what leadership we have going forward. And so that's directly opposed to people who want to cover up and hide and silence. And I saw just recently Florida's law on censoring what can be taught in the classroom is just completely un-American. And so that process of hearing the most voices so that we get the best democracy, that's what Dr. Jackson's life was dedicated to, or excuse me, Reverend Jackson's life was dedicated to.
Thank you. That was so well done. Neil, a final question and comment, and then we'll let Walter go.
No, the only comment I have, is more of a personal one. I shared a little bit about my seeing Reverend Jackson in Selma last year, and going to the speech when I was 15 years old. But more than anything, I want folks to know how much respect I have for Walter Greason. He is such a huge influence on my life. He's such a huge part of everything that I do. And in fact, before we leave, Sree, if I may, Walter is going to be joining my show on Thursday on mental health. As folks know, I do a twice a month show on mental health. Walter is going to be the guest on Thursday, episode 44, how AI and social media are leading to depression and anxiety. And Walter has some very, very strong things to say about this. So just another example of how Walter can step into more than one space and hold the room and command a presence. Walter, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you for coming back on Thursday. I just want to show you, if you haven't, for folks who haven't looked at Spotify, you just type in Jesse Jackson, and these are songs whether he's mentioned or they're about him or there's a reference. Even in the Great and Inspiring Speeches album is the address to the Democratic Convention that we talked about. There's also the Jesse Jackson, I Am Somebody is in here as well, and others. I'm sure some of these songs may not be positive necessarily, but he was somebody in popular culture as well. And on the right side, you see I was listening to the Press Box, one of my favorite podcasts, and their topic this week was Jesse Jackson's legacy. They're a terrific podcast from The Ringer. Everyone should check that out. It's called The Press Box, and they do sports, but also do a lot of press. It's basically about journalism, and I love that. So, Walter, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Folks, we have a lot to cover. This is today's newspaper, so I'm going to come in here. We do want to check out some of the comments here. We have so many great comments from people coming. Ron Thomas calling this a master class is so special. Ron is in Indonesia today. He usually watches from Dubai. And there's so much going on. Mary's comment earlier that he is the teacher. Mary says, my friend and mentee, Michelle Singletary, financial columnist at the Washington Post,
Yes,
wrote a moving tribute that shared how Dr. Jackson's speech to her school changed her life as someone raised by her grandmom on assistance. And Michelle Singletary is one of the most influential journalists in the U.S. I believe the economics unit has been kept, so I hope Michelle still has her role. And look at what Rajan is doing. He is tagging Melanie. Everybody do that right now. They can watch the show. As soon as it's off the air, this will be available on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. Check out digimentors.group. We have not just this video, but in the read-along section, we have 3 special Olympic sections that Neil will remind us about. So Neil, what will we be seeing?
Absolutely. Sree, we are just incredibly honored to have these 3 special PDFs on our website exclusively for the New York Times read-along community. Our friends Tom Jolly and Wayne Camadoy, the print editor and art director at the New York Times, respectfully shared these with us so that we can share it with our audience. And I'll share the link directly to that coverage. If you want to click on this, I'll put it in our various platforms. You get coverage from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And again, the Sunday coverage, it's more commentary. It was actually, prepared yesterday, but it's just really great. And then the other thing that's worth noting is that there's more coming in terms with the closing ceremonies, etc. But from talking with Wayne, what he said, Sree, which is interesting, is that people may not see those sections until Tuesday, possibly Wednesday, in the New York area because of the snow.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of the potential for snow coverage blocking things out. It was they literally won't get delivered. It's going to be that bad that it's going to throw off the delivery for these sections.
Well, one of the things we've always said is
The
that
ones coming up.
I pay tribute to the folks who deliver newspapers. I have over the years shown photographs on Twitter of the newspaper lying in front of my house in a snowstorm at 3:50 in the morning. Andrew says, Andy Revkin, whose work you must check out on Substack, a guest on the show, friend of the show, might be worth touching on the news around the New York Times passing $2 billion in annual revenue. That's crazy number, especially at a time when there's that contrast with the Washington Post. Last week, we had Richard Prince and Pradnya Joshi, two former Washington Post journalists. Pradnya is still finishing up her term as the national editor, weekend editor of the Washington Post. We learned so much from this conversation. Please go back, find it on digimentors.group, and it was a very moving, important conversation, and I'm so glad we were able to have it. Folks, there's so many comments, we won't be able to get to them. And Ken says, my comment, Summon the Heavens, was tied to my first comment about the Reverend Jackson speech that I witnessed in '88, how a storm gathered and thundered right at the climax of his speech. And Kaveri says, that's so profound. Hearing the most voices to get the best of democracy, best sort of democracy, applies totally and fully to India, Europe, all over the world. Last comment here, Friend Zone says, the cornerstone for the USA for MAGA is a white male being president. Trump is the backlash for that. Somehow, I could see all this coming as Obama's first campaign gained momentum, and several people have commented like that. All right, back to the paper, lots to talk about. The paper, we have about 15 minutes left to go through. Trump defiance on tariffs poses headache for the GOP. Clinging to unpopular despite ruling could hurt his party in the midterms. So many things could hurt the party in the midterms. But I keep saying I have full confidence in the Democrats screwing this up. What else? Trump plans to turn a people's park into a luxury destination. That's no sand trap. It's East Wing rubble dumped onto a public golf course. Golfing the municipal links in East Potomac Park, that's near Washington, with a mound of dirt and debris from the East Wing of the White House. And this is the ballroom has been the East Wing's been completely destroyed, and they're going to build a ballroom that no one else asked for. Once a cabbie, now a linchpin for the Kremlin's shadow war. That should be an interesting story. Rejuvenation in the Alps. This is a spa and hotel in Bormio, Italy. Hot springs attracted Olympics fans. And you can see it's cold, but they're in there. And deadlier risks if U.S. attacks Iran a second time. I think last time the world was lucky in how Iran responded or was able to respond to both the Israeli and American attacks. This time, they should be more prepared. A somber perspective from the skiers who got out as a doomed group arrived, sensing urgency before a deadly avalanche. This is what happened in the U.S. in Nevada, is what I believe I saw. I'd seen that headline. Remember, go to digimentors.group and you can get 3 Olympics PDFs available exclusively only on our site, because obviously PDFs are not on their site and they give it to us. The book review cover The mass market paperback, light in the hand and the wallet, once dominated, and on the wallet once dominated airport bookstores and supermarket media aisles. You may never buy a new one again. Many of us have copies, include some of you may have Gone with the Wind in this format, and they are in trouble. I'm actually surprised. Neil, this is like a business story rather than what you see in the book review cover. Normally it's a book review, unless this is, of course, a book that someone has written about this topic, and that would be very, very meta. So I'm actually just going to quickly look at page 10 to understand what is going on here with that. So there's this 2-page illustration, and it says cheap books, the mass market paperback, light in hand. So there's a column, I think, called cheap books, so that's there, but you never see that on the cover of the New York Times book section. Let's look at the Sunday Opinion cover, is the relentless war against Ukraine's future. And very dramatic photographs here. 4 years later, the fighting is still underway, but already Russia has won so much. Exactly. Trump had promised this war would be over on within 24 hours of his taking charge. He said promised the war in Gaza would be over in 24 hours, and that has continued. People are still dying there, and of course in Ukraine, still it's terrible. Neil, jump in if you have a reaction to any of these. Others, I'll keep going. And here's a barcode on the New York Times. This is really clever, Neil. Just look at this. I didn't even notice it at first because it looks like those those columns there. I guess this is called a colonnade, and the headline is Trump's break from the free market. The sheer breadth of his actions fits into no neat theory. Look at that cover. This is stunning for the Sunday Business cover.
It is interesting to have the barcode there. My question is always, and we can scan QR codes, but we can't scan the barcodes that are used in commerce. But I'd be curious if the Times actually went a step further and actually had it connect to something that it reads, White House for sale, et cetera, something to that effect.
Yeah, it's something that we'll experiment with and see. And you're right; they could have put in a secret thing in there, but I don't think we can do that. Here's somebody. We have, as we said, Neil, we have a lot of trolls who watch. Hate watching is okay. That's good. People are watching as long as you're watching. Here's somebody who says, we can read a newspaper ourselves, right? The question, Daniel Petticord 6079, is, are you actually reading a newspaper? Are you buying a newspaper and reading it? Are you encouraging the children, young people in your life to read a newspaper? Are you fighting disinformation and misinformation? That is the question, not whether this show exists because we know you can't read a paper, but we have a lot of people who actually can't afford the New York Times, can't afford a newspaper, and they watch us so they get a sense of what's going on in the world. We have people who have the paper in their driveway at 5:30 in the morning. Our friend Diana says that she decides what to read based on this. So we do this show because we love print. We don't know how long there will be a print edition, but it was predicted that the last newspaper would go out of style and out of business in terms of print by 2025. I think at least the New York Times and a few publications in the US are still here. And in places like India, print is not flourishing, but it is there in ways where America feels so diminished in the newspaper. So Neil, what is your response to this guy?
Absolutely. And I think that the more important response, Sree, is not just that people can read a newspaper, and we're not reading the actual paper. I think that's an important point, right? It's a read along. We look at the headlines, we look at the cut lines, we look at the layout, the graphic design. We are looking at the way the news is presented, and then talking about that and reflecting on that, criticizing the coverage when we need to. It's more of a discussion about the news. But more importantly, what Sree has done over the last 10 years, and I joined him about 8 years ago, is that we've built up a community of people who join us on Sunday morning to do this together. That's the New York Times read-along family that I'm referring to in the banner, in the ticker across the bottom. We do this in community, not ourselves not alone on our coffee table or on the front porch or wherever. It's the comments that we get from people like Mary C. Curtis and Ken Fisher and Ron Thomas. The list goes on and on. It's the relationships that have been built up over time among the people watching together. If you're not part of that community, you just won't understand, unfortunately. But if you join us for a couple of weeks and start interacting with people, you might see what we're talking about. I will note that most of the interaction happens on Facebook. That's where Sree started the show 10 years ago when Facebook Live was first a thing. Sree dropped newspaper on the table and said, let's see how this Facebook Live thing works. He took out his phone and aimed it. And we used to talk about live streaming and how it works and the technical aspects of it. Now that we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our website, people watch in a way that's convenient for them. But more of the interaction happens on Facebook, I think. That's my way, Sree, of saying thank you to everyone who has supported this show, who've joined us for the last 10 years. We are doing this because you're here. There's a small chance Sree and I might still do it, even if no one else is there, because we're crazy like that. But we do it because of the audience.
So beautifully put, though I do want to say that I have a friend who has her husband who can't read newspapers anymore, listen to our show. She just puts it on the laptop or iPad. He just listens, and that's the way he consumes us every day. And I promised her that I would do the show as long as he was still interested in being with us. So that's very special. Chitachi says, "You're too kind for explaining, Neil and Sree." That's fair. Here, Send It Vibes saying, "Did you cry foul when every other president made changes? No, you did not. Selective outrage is so unattractive." Well, no other president has taken an entire wing of the White House and destroyed it to do something that hadn't gone through process after process to get permission. This is you can't in New York, in DC. There are things that are landmarked, Neil, as you know. You can't just you can't even change the facade a little bit. And here he destroyed it after saying he's not going to do much. If you remember, he said that. So Send It Vibes, you're wrong about this. And someone else said in the comments that you're lying when you say there are still people dying in Gaza. So I asked, are there still people dying in Gaza right now? The answer, yes. People are still dying in the Gaza Strip as of late February 2026, despite a ceasefire agreement that went into in October 10th, 2025. There are sporadic hostilities, airstrikes, shelling continue to cause casualties. So, folks, don't just watch Fox News, and you will understand what is happening in the world in a more important way. Here is John responding to the comment and the story about the end of mass market paperbacks. He collects vintage. So your collection is going to be worth something even more, John. You should get that assessed. Rajan says Tuesday will be the 4th anniversary of the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Just stunning to hear that and to think about that. And Rose is watching. Thank you for democratizing access and information. Great show today. Tuning in from Middlebury, Vermont. Thank you, Rose, great friend. Thank you for being here. And by the way, we're now available as a podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. So Neil will do his magic and turn this into a podcast that'll be available soon after, Neil, a couple of hours or so. And depending on your Sunday,
Exactly.
We're here to listen, learn, and comment. Community view. I like that viewing, that community viewing. I like that. And Diane says, when I went to City College of New York in the 70s, or our communications teacher predicted newspapers would be a thing of the past in 2 or 3 decades. So that's interesting. So that teacher was thinking ahead, because Neil, you remember in the 70s, we could not have imagined something that was different from newspapers, even the 80s, 90s. And here we are still doing our thing. Thankfully, I've been part of it from the beginning. Oh my God, is it really 10 years? I wouldn't miss this. Thank you both. Thank you, Ellen. You're a great supporter. And Sudha gives us a thumbs up as well. And Deborah says, we're here to listen, which means so much. And let's see, John says that some of those paperbacks are already overpriced. And Mary says, when I'm trolled, I realize some folks get pleasure in insults or the pain of others. Why not spend that time learning or doing something joyful? My Sunday crew does that for me. Oh my God, Mary, thank you. And for
Thank
those
you,
of you
Mary.
not in the United States, you wouldn't know this, but Sunday is the busiest, most difficult day to do anything news, because all the Sunday shows are on, and also the sports news is big on Sunday. So we're competing at the biggest, most difficult time to get people's attention. So even one of you watching at this time is a blessing to us. All right,
Sree,
very quickly,
I'll-
we just
on that note, Sree, I'll tell you that when the show was longer, we used to go to 10 o'clock, and sometimes we'd stretch it past that. We would lose at least one loyal viewer because my mom had to turn on Meet the Press. So she was always like, don't go too long, because I gotta watch Meet the Press.
Sure.
And for a long time we couldn't get Brian Stelter to join us on the show when he was doing his morning show. Thankfully he was a guest on our show about 3 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, he was
After he
great.
left, stopped doing that morning
He
show.
was great, and we had to get Ali Velshi at 8 a.m.
Yes.
instead of 8:30 because his show starts at 10 o'clock. So
Yes.
people have been so kind to us over the years. But folks, go into the archives, digimentors.group, look for the read along button. You'll learn so much. I want to just show you a couple of other papers, sections, and then we'll go from there. This says clavicular, an online star. So I've not heard this name before. Clavicular, an online star, has emerged as a beacon of a group of narcissistic, status-obsessed young men.
Yes.
All that matters is a certain look. Well, he is handsome. I know nothing about him. And there's breaking news. 1 second. There's breaking news that I want to read from a breaking news alert that just came in. A man was fatally shot by law enforcement after he entered the secure perimeter of Mar-a-Lago, the Secret Service said. So that's just breaking seconds ago on the New York Times alert that just came through. And the politics of a first lady's style is this piece here. Rama Duwaji takes her place as at fashion shows in New York and in a national spotlight. She is very fashionable, dresses so well, and this is the woman who they kept saying that he's going to introduce, or we're talking about Zoran Mamdani's wife, that he's going to introduce Sharia, you don't say Sharia law, Sharia in New York. I mean, crazy stuff like that. Neil, we still have gone 10 years without doing anything more than looking at the cover of the Times Magazine. You can see this would be a 2-hour read along. This is not the Times Magazine. We read the Times Magazine, which is different. We read that at the office of the editor-in-chief, and you can find that in our archive, Jacob Silverstein's office. This is the magazine. This is T, the style magazine, and we've never been able to do anything with this. I would love to go to their office, Neil, and do something there or some other way, just a bonus episode.
Sree, I think it's obvious if you pick up that magazine again, the one we don't read, it's T. And what's the full name? The Style magazine.
Yeah, New York Times Style magazine.
I mean, what would we be doing with Style? I mean, I'm just that's a little out of our depth there.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the Times Magazine they all tried to break me. Giselle Pellicotte, this is the brave woman who spoke up about her torture, endless torture by her husband and
His friends.
dozens of men. Giselle Pellicotte opens up about surviving years of secret abuse in a trial that shocked the world. And this is the interview by Lulu Garcia Navarro, that interview section. So Neil, what they've done with this, as well as the book review, is taken things that are internal columns or sections and put them on the cover. So the interview is, a small part of the magazine. The cheap books column is a small part of the magazine, of the book review, sorry, and they put that on the cover. So they're mixing it up a little bit, as you can see there. The Metropolitan cover, the complicated path of a coach's quest. Ron Nacliero built winning basketball teams in Queens, but his job is at risk. And the life of basketball coaches in high school, that's a big, interesting story. And then the cover of the real estate section is Where Art Still Thrives in Soho. Inside the wonderfully cluttered space where the members of the Yoda family live and tap into their creativity. John, especially John Borstein, would be interested in that story. And then the last thing we're going to look at is the spring preview of Arts and Leisure. And what they have here is things you can watch on TV, in movies, etc. And this is young Mr. Harry Potter, not so young anymore, Daniel Radcliffe and the ever evolving career. And anything that sits in the zone of sweet and kind-hearted, but also a little bit weird or a little bit dark, the actor said, that's a place I really like to live in. So what a fun story it would be to read this when we have time. We have so many comments still coming in here. Thank you, everybody, for commenting, for participating. We really, really appreciate
Put
all
on,
of you.
Sree, there are a few that I'll put on.
Please.
Kaveri saying great show, Sree and Neil. Thank you, Kaveri. Pradnya Haldapur was watching. She has been there but forgot to say good morning. And that's actually one of the things to note. We know there are a number of people watching, but unless you comment, we actually don't know that you're there. So we rely on that for the quick hello and shout out. And Seshu says that was a great story about my mom. And I think I mentioned two stories, one about watching Meet the Press and the other tangentially, her giving me her ticket for her union rally. She was a member of 1199 in New York, and she let me go to the Jesse Jackson rally at the Jacob Javits Convention Center in 1988. I was 15, riding
Amazing.
the bus with her union brothers and sisters. I was in heaven. It was great.
I can imagine that, Neil. We just have a couple of minutes left. We want to thank everybody who was with us, but we want to quickly tell you a couple of things that are coming up really important. The first is that I am doing a special bonus episode or content for my Substack, sreenet.substack.com. Our former student from Columbia Journalism School, Sasha Abramsky, the author of American Carnage, How Trump, Musk, and Doge Butchered the U.S. Government, will be tomorrow. That's Monday, February 23rd at 2 p.m. If you subscribe to my newsletter, it's free. You will be able to see this. This is bonus material that is possible because of the support of our paid members. We're very, very grateful to our paid members, but that's Sasha. And please join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. You will learn a lot from him, as will I. Speaking of the newsletter at sreenet.substack.com, I want to very quickly just tell you about what's on there. I was interviewed. I've done thousands of interviews, but I was interviewed by Raghav Bell for a new podcast called Vigil. And I talked about the immense anti-Indian hate in the US right now. But I took that and told people that there's some amazing lessons on how to be a great interviewer and interviewee in this. So if you go to sreenet.substack.com, please click and read all about what I learned being interviewed after a very long time. The other thing on the newsletter that I want everybody to know is, thanks to our paid subscribers, we have been able to release bonus content, including a whole new channel called OK TV. You've heard of Prestige TV? You've heard of Peak TV? Well, we're talking about just OK TV. And these are our friends Zach Peterson and Tara Ruff write about this. Harlan Coben was the first one piece Tara wrote about. Harlan was a guest on our show. And then Zach wrote about Tracker, which is a big show on CBS. And I told my story about television and my relationship with television going back. I'm 55 years old, so I presume 53 years, 52 years, something like that. And people who appear in here: Bruce Springsteen, William Shatner, Alec Baldwin, Nicole Kidman, Bill Pullman, and Arnold and Dudley from the show Different Strokes, and how
I was saved from a very close family friend who was a pedophile, saved from him because I had watched Different Strokes and a famous episode that was a national conversation in 1983 about the friendly bicycle man in town and in the show. And so please check out sreenet.substack.com and look up OKTV. And then finally, one more thing I'd like to promote so that all of you can see it is our friend our very good friend Shankar Vedantam is on tour with his incredible podcast called Hidden Brain. And Hidden Brain is a podcast that everyone should watch. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and he's doing a live tour. So if you go to hiddenbrain.org, you can watch him live in Philly and in New York. It's coming up in March. You don't want to miss this. You will learn so much. Please tell your friends who already like Hidden Brain or don't even know the show to check out, and they can go to hiddenbrain.org and find out all about the show. So please go to hiddenbrain.org and look for the live tour section and buy your tickets. You will love the show. We have some comments here from folks who are watching. John says, it was TV that led me to flamenco, and he has a whole website about flamenco in New York. We have some other quick comments. Neil talks about that show with Different Strokes. Is a very powerful episode. And Neil, you mentioned earlier the show you host for all of us about mental health. It was on the New York Times Sunday Read Along where you opened up unprepared, unexpectedly, you decided to share about an incident or series of incidents that happened in your young life. And that was one of the most moving things I'd seen and most brave things I'd seen anyone do. And I'm so grateful to you for doing that. And your show, which is now in its third season, is a direct result of the work that you have done to help everybody improve their mental health. Please check out on Thursday. Walter Greason will be back. Walter will be talking about the damage that social media, AI, and all of this are doing to mental health. And by the way, there's a really important point, Neil, that I hate it when you see African American experts brought in to talk about so-called African American topics. You don't see them talking about national affairs as much as they should. International affairs. When was the last time you saw an African American being interviewed on mainstream television news about Iran or the war or any of the wars? Because bookers and producers think of interviewing Black folks for Black topics, so-called Black topics. So you're bringing him to talk about mental health and talk about AI. So important, and we're very, very grateful to you, Neil, for everything you're doing. We got to wrap this up. We're way over our time. I'm grateful to everybody who's watching. Grateful to Muckrack for sponsoring us. Grateful to the Graphic History Company for supporting us, and to everyone watching. You make a difference in my Sundays and my week. We're so grateful to all of you. Please subscribe to the podcasts on Spotify as well as on an Apple Podcast. Rate us, that makes a difference. And thank you for subscribing to my main newsletter. Will always be free. That is my commitment. Sreenet.substack.com. Neil, you're over to you to say
I'll-
goodbye.
I'll just mention Sree was talking about the mental health show that I'm hosting now. This is the third year of the show. And Walter Greason is going to be our guest, talking about how AI and social media are leading to depression and anxiety. That is our topic on Thursday. And I just wanted to say, Sree, thank you for the reference to that show. And just I love to link in Facebook. That show is actually was the second kind of the follow-up to a year-long series of shows I did on interviewing male survivors of sexual abuse, and that's what Sree was referring to. And I shared that story for the first time in a blog post. It was after talking about mental health for a year that I realized it was easier for me to talk about my history being abused than talking about mental health. So I challenged myself to do the show about mental health, and we've been going strong ever since. So that
Thank you.
episode of Different Strokes, I remember very, very clearly. It was very powerful, and it just
It saved
I'm
it saved
glad
me,
that
Neil. It saved me. There's no other way to put it. This was a family friend, an older gentleman who's who my family. This I was living in India at the time, forced me to be friends with this older gentleman. It could have gone very wrong, very, very, very wrong. And he knew just the right buttons to push to engage a 13-year-old, 14-year-old
yeah,
boy. And it was very unfortunate. So, Neil, thank you for all you're doing. It helps so many people, countless people. Everybody, you can see the entire show after it goes off the air on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. And also, please go to digimentors.group, get those free PDFs. If you go into several of our episodes, we have them. Neil, maybe we should collect all the PDFs in one spot and people
in
can
one
just
place. Yeah,
get them. And because those are not just collectibles, that's not important, but something you can share with your kids, your family members. Share it with the school. Send it out
absolutely.
to everybody. They want us
Some of
to
them are
send it.
timeless.
Yeah, and
Some are
many
timeless.
of them, the recipes, the
Yeah,
kids' content, all of that. And Ellen says, what I really miss are the tours at the Met on Sundays with Sree. When I was chief digital officer at the Met, I used to do these tours. And Ellen, what I'm going to commit now is to everyone who subscribes to the paid version. Again, it's totally optional. If you can afford to pay the $5 a month to subscribe to the paid version of the New York Times, to the Substack, sreenet.substack.com, I will commit to offering multiple personal tours within groups at the Met this year. So please sign up. Ellen's already a subscriber, a paid subscriber. So very grateful. Neil, let's wrap up this show.
absolutely. Because apparently we're a bunch of chatty Cathys, and we're
Oh,
going a little long from our hour. But I will say that the session with Walter was well worth it. So if you missed that, watch from the beginning when we're done on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. Thank you. There's the Hidden Brain promo and the one with Sasha as well.
tomorrow,
Thank
join me
you.
2 p.m. tomorrow, Monday night
2
on
p.m.
Sreenet.substack. American Carnage.
2 p.m. tomorrow. Thanks and have a great week.